Excellent. Right. So yeah, this is a lovely picture actually of one of our first, in fact, our very first install on Kerry Foods. And get an idea of what we mean when we're talking about large rooftops. So we're going to cover what the big solar co-op is, why we think it's needed, how we work, talk a bit about our solar sites, our current sites, our future sites, who we are, and how you can join us or how you can invest. So this is a really big question, which has been motivating us for a long time. Why hasn't every big roof got solar? I think a lot of people can relate to that. People see large rooftops or maybe areas of underutilized land and think, well, surely we need solar on that. And we've had the same thought. If you look at sort of government stats for deployment of solar, you can see that there's some brilliant success stories here. This is coal falling off the planet, or at least falling off UK energy generation, and wind doing pretty well. Solar, yeah, it's doing okay, but you can see it's not exactly a stratospheric rise in the UK. And if you break that down a bit further, this is a graph I made from some government stats from DESNZ, the government department. You can sort of see maybe why that's happened. So no prizes for guessing what happened here. This was the feed-in tariffs kicking in, subsidy regime for solar. Solar went ballistic. Subsidy regime gets taken away. Solar slows down a lot. But there's been a pickup slowly in the large. This green line is the large solar. This is largely solar farms, 5 megawatt plus. Picked up. Domestic solar slowed down, but it picked up again. So the smaller solar arrays. But here, this very interesting area, which is pretty much every big rooftop, most schools, industrial buildings, and any smaller ground mount solar project, pretty much flatlined for best part of a decade. And yet that's where kind of almost everybody agrees we should and could be putting solar. So, what's not getting built? Solar on commercial buildings, solar on community buildings. Of course, some of that is getting built, and we see news stories, etc., about that, but actually not really at the kind of scale that it could be. And the same applies to the smaller scale of ground mount solar. So the next question, obviously, why not? And I think it boils down to a few, really sort of banal reasons. One is it's complicated. Doing solar turns out to be a bit more complicated than people initially think. There's a trust issue. So going to a solar company, solar installer, you don't know whether you can trust them. And, there are some well-publicized instances of perhaps untrustworthy behavior in the solar industry, perhaps at the domestic scale. And then this big one, the return on investment, it's fine, but it's just not that high. Best case scenario for somebody investing in their own solar on a business, maybe 7 years. That sounds pretty good to me, but to most businesses, it's not that great. They've got limited funds. Could they be investing in their own business? And we hear all the time from people saying, I would like my business or organization to do solar. I have taken the business case to the investment committee, to the board, or whatever. And they said, if it doesn't pay back in 3 years, we're not doing it. We've heard that an awful lot. And so, to an extent, Big Solar Co-op is a sort of organization set up to answer those points. So, yeah, it's complicated, but we'll do it. Who to trust? So rather than a lot of people putting flyers through doors, we're a not-for-profit organisation, a carbon-first organisation. And that return on investment, yeah, okay, maybe for internal investments for companies, it doesn't look great. But for us, that's fine. We provide the capital to build the solar, and our source of funds is ultimately members of the public investing for whom those kind of rates of return are fine. In fact, better in many cases than they could get elsewhere. In a nutshell, this is what we do most of the time. Most of our projects look like this. We put solar on somebody else's roof. We sell them energy generated from solar. Anything they don't use on site, we export to the grid, and they get a fixed price for a 30-year period. And they can choose to buy out before the end of that period at a fair rate. But they get to isolate that part of their energy spend from the vagaries of the energy market, which has been very volatile over recent years. One big thing for us is ethical solar. So if anybody's interested in this issue, human rights abuses in solar, which I think people should be interested in, this report is a great one to read. It's getting quite old now, but it's still the kind of the most important publication on the subject, published by Sheffield Hallam University. And in there they document how forced labour in parts of China, notably in Xinjiang province, has been used to make solar panels, and in a system that amounts to a form of slavery, modern slavery, which is something we emphatically don't want to be involved with. The main thing we've done historically and continue to do is to buy more expensive solar panels that can demonstrate that they've got a clean supply chain. This is a lot harder to do even now than you might think. But there are some providers. We're still using some of these Meyer Burger panels, even though Meyer Burger have now stopped making panels. There are a few in stock. And there's this other manufacturer, REC, that we use, who can also show a clean supply chain. Most of the solar panels available in the UK at the moment cannot really show a clean supply chain with regard to enslavement, which is, I think, still a very shocking thing. To give you an idea of how, people say, well, how does it work as a business? To give you some idea of that, most of our revenue, and this is a kind of notional a projection, most of our revenue comes from on-site sales, so selling electricity to people who are using it on site. Some of it comes from exporting to the grid, and a small proportion, possibly nowadays smaller than shown here, is from other income through sale of renewable energy certificates, effectively. And then on the other side of the equation, most of our costs are the cost of finance. So that's the share interest, loan interest. We have operating expenses, just running the solar, that's cleaning and monitoring, maintenance, and the other operating expenses that any business would have. And we have some central costs, so largely that's staff. So we have our development team who go out and develop new projects. If we had any surplus, and we're not expecting to have huge amounts of surplus, that's not what we're built for. But if we have surplus, we can use it to reinvest in solar. And what that really means is, right now, for example, we've got a whole group of doctor surgeries that would like solar, but they're small, and we can't make it stack up. If we made more money, we might be able to take on projects that were slightly unviable for us now. So we would reinvest it in more solar. These are our sites that are currently running as of today, mostly across the Midlands. You see we're starting to branch out past our kind of heartland, and we're based, at least nominally, in Shrewsbury, though we have people all over the UK. And there's a real mix of sites there. Some, in there you've got industrial sites, you've got a school, you've got a community centre, doctor surgery, and some supermarkets, and at different scales. And this is a little view into our generation. So you can see over time, last year we obviously produced a lot more in summer than winter. Last year we got to certain heights, and we're now moving quite a lot past that. One of the interesting things is that each color is a different site. So not only are we generating more, but we're generating it from more sites. So it's a nice little indication of how we're growing. Another thing we can get from our monitoring software is an idea of how power gets used on site. This is a typical kind of rooftop site. This is Twigs in Matlock. So this graphic shows you that at the time we took this snapshot, solar was generating 40 odd kilowatts, 24 was going to the grid, 17 was being used on site. And you can also follow that sort of during the day. So at night, they're using grid power. Here, the sun comes up, they start to use solar power. They come into work, oh dear, switch everything off, we're back into grid power. But as the sun continues to rise, we're taking, on this particular day, we're taking over all the grid power, and for a big chunk of the day, they're running completely on solar, and that's reasonably typical for a sunny day at that particular site. There's also, if you're interested, there's a live solar monitor on our website, so you can see exactly what our sites in aggregate are doing at any given moment. So we've been looking at an enormous number of different new sites, as you can see from the map, and really across quite a large swathe of the UK, and quite a lot of different scales, everything from about 30 kilowatt up to even rooftop sites that are greater than 1 megawatt, and things like leisure centres, schools, but yes, things like golf clubs as well, care homes, a food packer, a visitor centre, a charity. So a real range. We're trying to be not really just picking community sites or just picking commercial sites, but having a mix of both. And it's more important to us that it's somewhere where it's under stable ownership. They use a lot of power. They've got a big roof, a roof suitable, and we can get on and put the solar on there that should be on there. One of our most interesting collaborations is with Mid Counties Co-op. So they're like us, they're a co-op. They run a lot of stores, like co-op stores, supermarkets across the Midlands. And we've got an agreement to build 29. Well, we're down to 24 now because we've built 5, which we're working through. So that's interesting, both because it's co-ops working with co-ops, it's a lovely thing, but also because our UK-wide approach as Big Solar Co-op enables us to work with an organisation with sites that are spread over a large area, so we're not stuck in one particular location. These are some of the upcoming sites. Actually, since I prepared this slide, the first time we've built 2 of them, Daventry and Bloxwich here. I quite like this slide because, let's be honest, these are quite boring pictures, right? So these are the kind of buildings we've got in every community. Everybody recognises these, and you see them, you know they're using a lot of power. They've got refrigeration, all kinds of things on site. They've got big roofs. Why in 2025 don't these places have solar already? So that's our mission. Go and fix that, and we're doing it. This is a nice one we did recently. Hornsey Steels in Shropshire. They make metal things. In fact, they made their own roof, and now that roof looks like this, which is a rather nice one. We're also doing, this is an upcoming one in Shropshire with Shropshire Hills Discovery Centre. I've included that because it's a lovely sort of hobbity kind of roof there, a kind of yin and yang-y, turfy roof, which we can also do solar on. So there's quite a range of different buildings. And this is one we've actually now completed, Fremantle Community Centre in Southampton, which is used for, this wide, huge range of community activities. We've also completed a merger with Leominster Sunrise Co-op. That's a pre-existing co-op. And there are quite a number of smaller solar co-ops where you're getting to a point where their management committees or boards don't really particularly want to be running it anymore. They've been doing it for a long time, and they're looking for a succession plan. And we're able to provide that for them for this. And there's 2 more co-ops who are going to merge with us in this way, who voted to do so. Their members come over and become our members, and we take over operation of their solar arrays. This is a project that some of you, I'm sure, will have seen, our Whiteborough Solar project. So almost all our projects, apart from this, have been rooftop. And there are reasons why you don't immediately jump into doing ground mount solar. I mean, one of the reasons is there are commercial operators actually doing it and doing it fairly well at a large scale. The other thing is there are a number of legitimate concerns about ground mount solar. Is it taking up land that could be used for agriculture, high grade agricultural land? There's a real rolling debate about that in the UK. So we have been looking for a site which made a bit more sense, or made sense to us, and Whiteborough is it, really. So the great thing about this site is it's low grade land because it used to be a coal mine. So it was an open cast mine, which was filled in the 60s. The other thing we're doing on this site that's really kind of innovative is we're using part of a build will be in what we're calling second life solar. So solar panels that are getting decommissioned elsewhere, not because they don't work anymore, but because people want to upgrade them because it makes sense for that site, and would otherwise just go to be recycled, destructively recycled, broken up. But those panels have decades more in them. And because of the characteristics of this site, we can use them on this site intelligently and make this a super low carbon solar farm. We've also got a really nice biodiversity plan to increase biodiversity on that site. All the consents are in, and we're actually building that at the moment. I think I've got some images here. So yes, this one here, these X's mark places with mine workings. The blue shows an area that was open cast mine, and this red square here is our site. So you can see basically the whole site was an open cast mine at one point. This is what it looks like today. So it's sort of low grade 4 agricultural land, only used for horses at the moment, which means, of course, that when we've started working, the work for the first phase is super glamorous work. It's raking up loads and loads of horse muck. So that's what's happening. That's what Wayne's doing in this photo here. And that's the kind of work that's happening on site at the moment, preparing the site, building better access tracks, putting on better fencing for security, and starting to dig trenches for big cables. So rolling back a bit to Big Solar Co-op, who we are. So this is from our Big Solar Gathering, something that we hold every year, and which you're warmly welcome to come to this year. So we have members, we have a staff team, we have partners. We've got two types of members. We've got volunteer members, over 100 of those. And these are people that give their time to the organisation. In various working groups, they might be doing design work. So got people who we've trained up to do solar design. They might be volunteering on the board. So, or they might be a site champion. And this is a great role where people can develop a solar site that they have in mind using our tools and network. I got a really good chance to check this out with Theo here, who did work experience with us, having just done his GCSEs last year. And we thought we'd have a go at seeing how far he could get in a week. So on Monday he did all this. He did a solar design himself using software we use. On Tuesday we kind of worked with him to make that a little bit better. On Wednesday we did a financial model together. Thursday he actually took it in and presented it. So here he is doing it to the managing director of the leisure centre. And on Friday he made a paper for their board. So I mean that was great, because it meant that, to me it was great. It meant that somebody, a 16-year-old, admittedly very, very bright and enterprising 16-year-old, could take our tools and actually go from, I'd like to put solar on this leisure centre where I go and play hockey, to presenting to the board and managing director in 4 or 5 days. We think this is an enormously powerful way of looking at developing solar in our communities, and lots of different people can take this model and make it work. One of the things we're doing at the moment is starting to work on the first ever community solar, what we call a foundation course. So a more structured course for people to learn the ropes of this kind of solar. We also, so I mentioned volunteer members, we also have investor members, again, across the whole UK. And we've raised over 2 million in shares from investor members to date. Thank you very much. Our structure is, we're a cooperative society registered with the FCA, where, like other co-ops, our voting power doesn't depend on shareholding. Ultimately, in our model, volunteer members have 75% of the vote. They're the people who are putting in their time and understand exactly what we're doing. They have, as it were, the casting vote. But investor members can also become volunteer members if they wish to. We have a board elected from our membership. We have a staff team of 5. We have a whole range of partners who we work with, and in there are 3 sets of lawyers we work with. There are different installers that we have a strong relationship with, and technology providers, among others. One of our big partners is Sharenergy. Some of you will know that I'm also co-founder of Sharenergy, a co-op that helps people set up renewable energy co-ops across the UK and has been around for a while. Sharenergy really is where the big solar co-op idea originated, and we continue to have a symbiotic relationship effectively where Sharenergy provides a lot of services to big solar co-op, so a very important partner. And then we've had funders. None of these, I don't think any of these people are funding us at the moment, but these are people who've funded us with grant funds or loans to help us on our journey. But you saw that map full of sites to build what we need to build, and the Whiteborough project, we need to raise quite a bit of money over the next couple of years. And there's three real ways we can do that. We can sell shares, bonds, or we can get loans. Just to explain where we are with loans. So we've had some bridging loans from We Have a Power, who are a great organization that specializes in bridging loans to organizations like us. We borrowed 400k from them, which we've all paid back. And we're looking to borrow a bit more during the build phase of Whiteborough. That's been agreed. We also have an agreed loan with Unity, who are formerly Cooperative Energy, who are lending us some, again, bridge funding to build the Whiteborough project. We've got a loan in place, a medium-term loan in place, £800,000 loan with Resonance, who are a social lender. And in the future, we're looking possibly to get more loan finance when we're a little bit bigger, because most of the big loan funders don't really want to know until we're quite a bit bigger. So our share offer, I've mentioned, we've raised over 2 million. We keep the share offer rolling all the time. It's worth looking a little bit of a difference between sort of company shares that people might be used to and our sort of shares, which are the type of shares, withdrawable share capital, we use and other people in the community energy movement use. So what are they for? Primary purpose, company shares kind of to make money. And the bottom line with our shares is the purpose is to make solar happen. Share value goes up and down in companies. In societies, it tends to say exactly the same. There's a return on investment in both cases. For company shares, that's a dividend. It's a share of the profits. In our case, the return might be the same, but conceptually it's different. It's a payment for providing capital. The difference is that if we made huge surpluses, a company might redistribute them. We would reinvest them in solar. So there's effectively a cap on how much we would give out in member interest. Who can buy company shares? Well, very often only sophisticated investors and brokers. Because our shares are more restricted in what they can do, we can sell them direct to members of the public. From a risk point of view, if you invest in a company, you could lose all your capital if a company goes wrong. And formally speaking, for us, the risk is the same. So if we don't do what we should do, you could lose all your capital. That's a similar risk. Big Solar Co-op is in the business of building solar. So unlike a lot of organizations, a lot of the money invested, almost all of it, goes straight into building solar assets, which have 30-year contracts. So in many ways, we are able to de-risk a lot more than most companies could. But yes, the bottom line is you invest, you could, in theory, lose all your capital. Buying shares is easy. Anybody over 16 can buy shares, minimum 100 quid, maximum 100k. And buying shares makes you an investor member. There's a big button on our website. Actually, it says invest rather than buy shares at the moment, but that'll take you to the buy shares page, and you can pay by a variety of different mechanisms. We pay interest annually, and we aim to pay a fair rate of interest, which we define as 2% above the bank base rate, or if a bank base rate drops below 3%, we would keep ours at 5%. It's payable after 1 full year, so we need a year to take the money invest it in some solar, get some income, and then we can start paying interest on it. Share interest could be paid out to you, or you can choose to reinvest it. And that's something which I don't think many community energy organizations offer at the moment. But because we're growing really fast and we've got so many sites to build, it's great if people are interested in reinvesting their interest. Say you had X amount of interest in a year, you could choose to have shares put onto your share, onto a share register to that amount rather than have the capital in your hand. And many of our members have chosen to do that. People ask about share withdrawal. Yes, you can apply to withdraw shares, and if we've got the cash, we will allow it. Our aim is to allow people in and out as easily as possible. Of course, if we spent it all on solar, there might be a delay, but our aim is to allow people to withdraw. You can't buy shares for children. Unfortunately, regulations have made that really hard to do now. Shares can be inherited, and they are exempt from inheritance tax up to the cap. I know that won't apply to everybody, but we've spoken to people who say they've bought shares partially on that basis, and your interest is taxable from the shares. Some people might be exempt under the personal savings allowance. If you've got a relatively small amount of money invested in total, then you probably are. So as many will have seen, we're also got a bond offer open at the moment, and that's specifically to raise the money to build the Whiteborough project. We've launched it in June. It's doing very well, as you can see. That's different from shares as a fixed interest rate of 5.5%. It's a 7-year term, so your money is locked away for 7 years, and you get it back at the end. But 5.5% a year. The great innovation with a bond offer is it can be wrapped in an ISA, which means that the interest is tax-free. And that's really why we've done it through Ethex, because they're able to offer that ISA wrapper, which we wouldn't be able to do on our own. A rather dry thing here with lots of words on it. You can find this on our website, comparing the shares and the bonds. We've mentioned a lot of this. I mean, I think the key differences are really the tax-free status of the ISA, the ability to reinvest interest in the shares on the flip side, but also to understand this basic thing, which is that ultimately the bonds are as secure as we can possibly make them. We will pay that interest annually at the same rate, whereas the share interest, it is more risky ultimately, that the interest payment we make on shares, it depends on our performance. There are some other small differences, but you'll be able to see these slides afterwards, and please ask any questions as well. On our shares page, you might see this. We've just started doing this, a sort of slider where you can look at your impact of your investment. So you can change the amount of shares you might buy. So here, 1,000 shares, the equivalent power and average house's electricity needs for 4 months. And I really like this, push enough gas generated electricity off the grid, which is what we're doing most of the time, to save about 5% of your personal carbon footprint. I mean, that's based on an average UK carbon footprint. In the UK, we have very big carbon footprints. So invest £1,000, get a good return, and do something practical which actually reduces your carbon footprint by that amount. I think is quite a good impact. And if people have other metrics they'd like to see on that, where you'd like us to do the sums, so really happy to hear suggestions. So that's it. This is Chris and Helen on the roof of Twigs just after it's been installed. Yeah, so there's our website. We have a mailing list for updates, and please ask. We're always happy to get questions by email, and we'll give you a full answer. Thank you.